In 1,000 Words or Less by Christeen Kaluaat of Gloucester 2422. Narrated by David Tredinnick. Just a few kilometres out of town, on a short stretch of gravel road known as Devil's Bend, I came across Jimmy. Actually, he was quite difficult to spot because his scrawny black back appeared to fit perfectly into the knobbed tree trunk, and you would have been forgiven if you believed he was part of that giant coolabah. From his mouth hung the usual fierce and fiery cylinder, which once again was putting his thin moustache in decided peril. It had probably been, at one time, a decent-looking rollie. However, having been viciously sucked for hours on end, it was now just a fraction of its original size, and had become seriously ugly and downright dangerous. Jimmy's stubby fingers swiped impatiently at a thin wisp of smoke that had been troubling his weary brown eyes, and I noticed with great surprise that his fine feathery hair had now turned completely grey. How long had it been since we last had one of our legendary long chats? I realised, with a deep sense of guilt, that many, many months had flown by since I had wandered this far out west and tracked his movements. I wondered then how many decades we had been blessed by sharing our world with Jimmy. I figured on 8, and was thankful for every day I had been fortunate to have been called his friend. "Hello, Uncle," was our usual greeting, and the familiar words woke my hero from an unaccustomed nano-nap. "Good afternoon, my dear friend," he answered with such perfect intonation that I was momentarily startled, even though Jimmy had long ago been classified by me and others as an ageing thespian. "Give me your troubles," had always been our next familiar greeting. However, this time, as I joyfully uttered the words, Jimmy looked skyward and brushed flakes of errant tobacco from a weathered lapel, his old orange coat long ago out of fashion. The usual return dialogue was not evidenced, and I knew instinctively he had a troubled mind, with issues he not yet conveyed to his community. I bent low and cupped my hand to his chin, bringing those deep brown eyes level with mine, and quietly implored him to continue. "They want my story. The Historical Society. They want me to tell them my story, and I just cannot." The broken voice betrayed the anguish he was so desperately trying to keep hidden. "I just cannot do it." Jimmy carefully unfurled his bent body and stood straight as a proud flagpole, unaided apart for the treasured walking cane inherited from his father, an elder in the community. Jimmy now held that position with pride. I spread my arms wide and gestured him to continue, earnestly hoping for an answer to his obvious troubles. "They said I had to do this story in 1,000 words or less, and I am absolutely unable to comply." His challenging tone clearly indicated his previous torment had now turned into defiant indignation. "How can they think I can do that in just 1,000 words? I spoke with solemn honesty and said, "Jimmy, let me help you put those 1,000 words into print by telling me what the main goals in your life are." My words were intended to ease the anxiety Jimmy faced, yet as I listened intently, I came to understand the huge divide, and I could clearly see the dilemma he faced. Jimmy spoke of how for years savage floods had ravaged the countryside, and how his careful planning and dedication to the country had diverted future floods from his home. He then told of fires so fierce the land remained scorched and barren for many months, until the community learned to do frequent safe burn-offs in winter months to keep the land where they lived safe and fertile. Most telling for me, and perhaps the saddest of Jimmy's tales, was how his community had changed over the years. The young, who once stayed to look after the old, now travel many kilometres to cities and large towns and have been swallowed by new adventures and mind-altering drugs. They have forgotten their language and lessons of old, he said, and I placed my hands on his shoulders as his soul wept tears of pain. Jimmy's urgent need to let our world know of his dedication to all things past and all things future, our cultural differences and similarities, the diversity of his culture and the here and now of a world which had discarded many centuries-old customs forever, would take many thousands of telling words. I spoke to his eyes and I looked into his heart, and I believed he saw that I could never do justice to his story, not even in 6,000 words or less. Jimmy left that night for parts unknown, and with him he took a generation of wisdom, and I trust he also took a lifetime of hope for our future. Without beautiful Jimmys in the world, we are a lot less wise and a lot less capable of caring for each other. The end.